So we'll be talking about the college N.E.S.T, and N.E.S.T means Nourishment, Essentials and Support for student success. And then I'll talk about what we created at Southern University. I'm Alexis Motley. I'm the Dietetic Internship Director at Southern University. So next slide. So I'll introduce myself and kind of tell you all the things about me and what I do when it comes to food. We'll talk about food insecurity, college students. We'll talk about the Jaguar N.E.S.T, which was created at Southern University by myself and some dietetic interns and nutrition students, and how to start your N.E.S T. And then we'll go with the question and answer. Next slide. So who am I? I'm Alexis Motley. I'm a registered dietitian by trade. And when you see all these pictures, these things represent what I do on a daily basis. I am the Dietetic Internship Director at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Southern University is one of 5 HBCUs who still have a dietetic internship program. I am the Executive Director and founder of My Kid Plate Foundation. This was created during COVID at a time where I went home as a dietitian, but I came back, well equipped as a nurse, a teacher, all things. And what I was teaching my children, I wanted to teach other children. So I started My Kid Plate Foundation, where we started initially in 2020 as a way to bring school gardens to early childhood centers and different places across the community. Now we've turned into a safe haven to help people fight food insecurity. And that's my legacy. My grandfather was a farmer. My mom is she doesn't call herself a farmer. She just says she's a gardener, but she has a lot of garden beds across the area which I grew up in. And this is actually a garden bed at my children's school. And recently, this time last year, we're actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary next week, the Jaguar N.E.S.T at Southern University. So these things represent who I am and what I do on a daily basis. Next slide. So in the news, we've been hearing a lot about people and food insecurity. If you haven't heard it, let's talk about it today. So what is food insecurity? It's defined by the USDA as a household or individual who has a limited or uncertain access to adequate food due to a lack of money or other resources. And in the last month and a half, almost 2 months, we have seen the government shut down, and a lot of people were impacted who receive SNAP benefits, and those people probably experienced a lot of food insecurity. But when you think about food insecurity, it's not just the word food insecurity. There's poverty that comes into that, lack of education, climate, environment, access, food prices. Just a lot of things go into when you think about food insecurity. And when I talk about it, oftentimes it resonates with people when they think about families and children. And a big population that a lot of people miss out would be our college students. Next slide. College students and food insecurity. 1 in 3 college students experience food insecurity. And that number is really a lot higher at historically Black colleges and universities. And so when we think about food insecurity, I always try to paint the picture this way. Most people feel, when I did a lot of research, it's like, well, a kid is going to college. They're privileged. They're either on scholarship, their families are paying for them to go to school, or maybe they have access to student aid, or they have access to student loans. But that population experience a high level of poverty. Just because you're in college doesn't mean you have access to other means outside of maybe your scholarship. One thing I found out when I came back to the world of academia, when I was in college and I received a full paid scholarship, that included my tuition, my room and board, and my food. And at the university I attended, if you had room and board, you also were able to have your meal plan together. Now, a lot of universities, to decrease on costs, just because you have housing, it doesn't mean you have a meal plan. Those things are separate now. They're not together. So some parents might say, hey, I can get you to college, we can pay tuition, and we can get you a dorm room, but they don't think about how much food can cost and what food insecurity can do to a student, how they can experience. If you're hungry, you maybe don't want to go to class. If you're hungry, you might not want to study. And it can really impact graduation rates as well. Next slide. So the Jaguar N.E.S T. People ask, how did I start the Jaguar N.E.S T, or how did the Jaguar N.E.S T come about? Well, our representative reached out and she said, hey, I have some funds. What can we do with these funds? Our university is located in a food desert, meaning that our students have to travel about 20 plus minutes to get to a grocery store. Around our campus, we have McDonald's, we have Jack in the Box, we have this place called Empire Wings. And if you ever have the chance to come to Baton Rouge, there's this thing called the Blue Store. And they specialize in this fried chicken. That's very popular. It's all around Baton Rouge. But this is what's around our campus. And we have a Family Dollar, and then there's a small bodega. But an actual grocery store where students have access to nutritious foods, it's about 20 minutes away. Additionally, our students have to, if they don't have transportation and they want to use public transportation, the transportation no longer comes on our campus. A student, if they live in student housing, they have to walk about 2 miles to get to the bus stop, wait for the bus. And if you've ever been to Louisiana, it could be really, really hot sometimes, or it could be a monsoon outside with the rain coming. So you're waiting on the bus, you get on the bus, you have to go it's about 20 minutes away in a car. So I would say on the bus about 30 plus minutes, get to the grocery store or maybe Walmart, you shop, walk out of there with your grocery bag, sit at that bus stop and wait to get back to the university to get to that bus stop to walk about 2 more miles. So when I was speaking with the representative, I painted that picture and she said, what can we do? I said, well, one thing that I know that I can do is provide food. And she said, how can we provide that food? So I said, well, you ever thought about purchasing refrigerators and the dietetic interns, we could prepare food. Now, mind you, I put the cart before the horse. I was like, I had all these grand ideas, no policies, systems in place, but I did know that my students have a student restaurant called Cafe La Cumba, and we would open up monthly. So I was like, okay, well, if we get a refrigerator, the interns know how to prepare food, we can prepare food. Not thinking, well, how are you going to get the food? Who's going to pay for the food? All I was thinking was, hey, get us the refrigerators, get us the shelving that we need, and I'll figure everything out. So that's really how the Jaguar Nest came about. The representative had funds. And when I went to the dean, I said, hey, we have this donation for refrigerators. I found some space on campus. Can we do it? She said, absolutely. Then at that point, it was like, okay, you have the refrigerators, you have the space. Now, where are you going to get the food? So I found we got the refrigerators, the space on campus, and then I started reaching out to places like Costco, Sam's. I reached out to Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Panera Bread. There's a lot of just everywhere I thought about who could make donations. I just started calling and sending letters and creating like a support system, kind of painting the same picture that I told you all that our students were experiencing. So now we have a cycle of donations from different Greek organizations around town. Different churches make donations. And so now we have the locations on campus, and then we created a big support system. Now, some weeks we get a lot of donations, some weeks we get medium donations, and some weeks we get smaller donations. But what we have known that our donations are very consistent. Now, during this time when the government shut down and people realized that our college students were impacted by the SNAP program, people started making higher donations. I actually use times on campus when we know we're going to have a lot of people like homecoming. I put out and was telling people what we were doing, and alumni they all were coming back and making either an in-kind donation or actually buying the food or giving us a monetary donation. So it's really important. That support system about what we do is the biggest thing about the Jaguar Nest. We do get a lot of support from our alumni and from the community around us. Next slide. So why did I want to create the Jaguar Nest? Food insecurity is high, especially at an HBCU. Southern University is classified as a HBCU, so I know that our students are experiencing food insecurity. And from a firsthand knowledge, I understand that our students, we are in a food desert. I tell people when I came back to the university, as I am a military veteran, so I lived in 9 states. So we always had access to food, and I always would enjoy lunch because it's like, oh, where am I going to go to lunch today? When I came back to the university and realized I had to drive about 30 minutes to get to lunch just to go to some of my favorite places, I started to think about our students who would have to drive there. Then I said, what about students who don't have cars, if they have to take public transportation? So I was thinking like, this will really help them grab things that they need. And then I'll start to describe to you all what's inside of our nest, because it's not just anything that I put inside the Jaguar Nest. So our university is located in a food desert, and it's one of the bigger food deserts in the East Baton Rouge Parish in Scotlandville, Louisiana. Food insecurity impacts a lot of things. It impacts your mood, it impacts your grades, and it impacts just the student well-being. Our university service a lot of first generation college students, and these students are these are the first people in their families to attend college. And it impacts graduation. We want to increase our graduation rate. And so when I talk to the chancellor, I always say food can do a lot of things, and food can really increase our graduation rate if a student don't have to think about their next meal. Next slide. So the Jaguar N.E.S.T, I tell students and people and sponsors that we are fighting food insecurity. Our N.E.S.T is here to fight food insecurity. And it's just not, we just give food. It's grab and go meals for students. And these meals can go from, we will have chicken salad sandwiches. We might have, let me think of the latest menu that's on. We'll have, since it's getting a little cooler outside, we'll have broccoli cheese soup for them to grab. They can we do have microwaves in the area for them to warm it up if they want to warm it up, or take it back to their rooms to warm it up. Inside, we can have, one week we might have spaghetti and meatballs for them to grab, but we do salads every week. We also make sure there's a parfait every week. We try to make sure that we provide fruit salad as well every week. So I feel that our N.E.S.T makes sure not only they're eating, but they're getting nutritious food when they're eating. So I'm very specific on what I ask people to donate. I don't just, my ask is always lined out. I don't just say, hey, just make a donation. We just want food. And in the handout, like if you click on the handouts for this session, I gave an example of like what I send out to people and say, hey, this is what I would like you to donate when donating. Next slide. How do we do it? So the university supports us a lot. When we decided to do the Jaguar N.E.S.T, I went directly to our chancellor and I explained to him, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to do it. And we need your support. So when he's out asking for donations or things for the university, he's always talking about our university is in a food desert, support the Jaguar N.E.S.T, and this is how you can support the Jaguar N.E.S.T. Now we function solely on volunteers. Our dietetic intern students who are training to be registered dietitians, they are our managers for the Jaguar N.E.S.T, but we have college students from freshmen all the way up to graduate students volunteering. Our university employees, they volunteer a lot. They might come in and make sandwiches, clean out the N.E.S.T, clean out refrigerators, make donations, and community members. Churches have really stepped up to assist us. And I mean, all denominations across the board have come and helped us in some form or fashion. And I reached out to the interfaith. We have an interfaith council, and that's with all denominations. And I went and I spoke to them to tell them exactly like what we were doing, who we were impacting, and how they can help. Donations are very important. We thrive and survive on donations, a lot of in-kind donations from stores, community members, and monetary donations. Some people say, hey, I don't have time, here's the money, so then we'll go buy the things we need. And I tell you, social media is a blessing, because one thing we do, we show people what we're doing, and alumni are seeing. I come to my office and there's Amazon boxes. That we have Amazon lockers on our campus, and I'll get an email that says, hey, go to this box, there's a donation being made, or they'll have it delivered straight to my office. Community partnerships are important, because when they are going through whatever, when they're budgeting things out, you always want to catch them right when they're starting to plan the budget for the next year, so you can say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is who we're impacting, this is how much money we will need. So I've really made a lot of community connections, and community partners really help us thrive, and we don't have to really think about the next donation. If I feel like our stock is getting low, I know which community partner we can reach out to and say, hey, we're at our par level, we really need to stock up, can you make a donation? Next slide. So when do we do this? So our students prepare fresh meals weekly, and honestly, when we prepare them on Mondays, we stock the pantries on Mondays. By Tuesday, early Wednesday, there's nothing left in the pantry. So we're looking to add 2 days, but right now we're only preparing fresh meals weekly. We do receive weekly donations from Costco, sends us a weekly donation. So we disperse those things out at each time they come. Sometimes it can be 3 pallets, 4 pallets, and it can be 1 pallet. So it just depends on, the donation they would like to make. And when the donations arrive, we stock the pantry, the N.E.S.T immediately. And now that Costco knows that we're just not food, we do have a section with shelves that we take non-perishable items, but also we put essentials there. So feminine products, toothbrushes, toothpaste, soap, deodorant, anything that we know that can help the student not think about to decrease stress. I'm all about eliminating barriers, and we try to think about all the things. I always think about what did I need when I was in college, and we poll students. I'll say, especially our athletes, I'll say, hey, can you tell me some things that would make your experience here at the university better? And so we make sure we poll students through our Google Docs, or I'll have students walking around and asking at the student union, asking different students what they would like to see in our N.E.S.T. And so that's how we kind of figure out what we need. And that's what I kind of make sure we add to our list when we request things from our donors. Next slide. Who do we impact? So the Jaguar N.E.S.T. is open to all students, undergraduates, graduates, and law students. And I was fortunate enough to be able to receive funding for a community refrigerator that is about 1.5 miles away from the university. We partner with a church. So when we get donations, we not only stock the pantry on campus, we stock the pantry that's at the church in the Scotlandville area. The same things that our students are experiencing, food insecurity and being in the food desert, so are those members in that community. So we don't just help our students on the campus, we also help the community. So we have an extension of the Jaguar N.E.S.T. at a church not too far from the university. Next slide. These are some of our weekly menus. I get excited because the students try to compete to who has the best menu, because we'll allow students to vote on social media who had the best menu. The dietetic interns create these menus, and it's about bragging rights for the students, but hey, I like a little healthy competition. So we went, one week we had baked ziti with meat sauce and they had vegetable sauce. One week we had the classic BLT, and then another week we had spaghetti and meatballs. And I try my best, if we're gonna give a meat option, to offer a vegetarian option, but salads are on there every week. We try to make sure we have fruit, parfaits, just to ensure that students are getting, when I think as a dietitian, my plate, so I want as much color as possible when they're coming to the N.E.S.T. Next slide. And our impact. So these pictures that you see, so from dietetic interns, and at the top, the young ladies that are making the sandwiches, those are student athletes. Those are our soccer players at Southern University, and those students come every week. A lot of people ask me, how do you get students to show up? I say they put skin in the game. Like, they realize that if they're hungry, other people are hungry. So they're making these sandwiches, not just for themselves to take, hey, I get to take a sandwich because I volunteered today, but they're helping not only themselves, but their fellow classmates. But those are our dietetic interns, some student athletes. And then at the bottom where the student is handing off the salad, those are some of our nutrition students in the college. And just with our background, these are some of the supporters that we've had. And I think when this was written, when this impact report was put up, we had served about 900 meals at that time. That has increased because that impact report was published in August. So we'll see come December what number we're at now. Next slide. So next steps, how do you start your N.E.S.T? You have to create a plan, what works best for your university. Even some people are picking this up at high school, so this really excites me. So you create a plan. You want to find donors or grants. You want to find space on your campus. You need to figure out who your volunteers will be. If that's parents, will that be students themselves, community partners? Storage. Donations come so much. I didn't even think about storage. I'm very honest and transparent with people. When I started this N.E.S.T, that cart was way before that horse. So think about storage, come up with policies and procedures. And listen, I'm a boots on the ground type person. I'd rather get started and work out the kinks, and then instead of sitting at a table and plan. Hey, let's just get started. But the biggest thing is create a plan, find you some space, and people hear what you're doing. Donors and grants will come along, get volunteers, and always think about storage, because the more storage, the more you can request. Next slide. Okay, I really want some engaging conversation. So I want to open it up to some questions, either in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, that's fine as well. But I want you all to know, first of all, I'm excited that you're here. But our Jaguar N.E.S.T, we have 2 locations on our campus. One is actually in my building, and we have a refrigerator and we have shelving and space for students. So it's right by our student our student restaurant, excuse me. And then our second space is in our intramural sports complex. And the director there has given us a large space. So we have a refrigerator, and then we have shelving on both sides that takes up a whole wall. So one wall we have non-perishable items, and the other wall we have our essentials that students need. That we'll have detergent, toilet paper, paper towels, toothbrushes, soaps, deodorants, feminine products. So you name it, we make sure that that's there at the N.E.S.T. And then I just received we'll be getting a third location starting in the spring, our public policy building. They purchased a refrigerator and shelves and they asked me would I be willing to partner with them to bring the N.E.S.T to their building. So I always say when people see that you're doing great work, they're going to be willing to assist. So I would love for someone to unmute and ask some questions since we have about 15 minutes. That's a lot of time for us to chat and answer some questions. Let me look in the chat. So Samantha, you should be able to access those documents that I put, the handouts, and yeah, I think it's like documents in a link section in the I'm pretty sure Mary will explain to you how to get there, but I made sure I put a couple things in there for you all to get access to.
Yeah, it's right below the session description.
Okay, right below the session description. You'll be able to get the example of what I send out, but you get creative and send out your list as well. And I'll make sure I send, when we go to the next slide, well, maybe Mary, you can go to the next slide and you'll be able to contact me. So Samantha, if you have any questions and need any guidance and just for me to sit and talk with you and walk through what we do, I'll be more than happy to help you out so that you can partner with our pantry. I see Roxanne Moore has a question. Roxanne, you can ask your question. You're not on mute.
You might be talking, possibly, but we can't hear you. Oh, I think there's a question in the chat.
Okay, so Samantha asked, wondering how you made the move from providing shelf-stable fresh foods to fully ready to. Okay, so how did we go from shelf-stable foods to grab and go? So the dietetic intern students, we have a monthly student restaurant that we open up called Cafe La Cumba. So we already have the space to make food. So when people were donating things like our food bank, they would donate a sack of potatoes. So I can't just put potatoes and think college students are going to take a potato and prepare that potato, because we think about what a dorm room looks like. They might have just their refrigerator and a microwave or a crock pot. So I said, since we already have the space, a restaurant style space, let's just start making those grab and go meals for students. And so I use this as an assignment for my students to learn how to create menus. And then we started whatever we get as a donation, we look at the donations and say, hey, this is what we're going to make. So that's how we kind of transition. I already had the space from the student restaurant. So then we just transitioned to saying, hey, and we open up once a month for the student restaurant for the whole campus. But every week we use that space to create those grab and go meals for students. So David asks, how are we collecting data? So what we do, I have a QR code in it. Before they open the door in my building, they have to scan the QR code. I think they believe in their head that it's linked to something. It's really not. It's just a Google Doc, but it says, before you grab your food, please scan the QR code. And so they scan the QR code and we ask them several questions. So we track how many students are going in that way. We also, the interns, make sure we track how much food is prepared, because we know some students might not scan the QR code. So I can tell you how many exact meals were provided. So we are working with our research department to get this a better tracking system. Again, David, like I told you, I put that cart way before the horse when I started. So now, we started tracking immediately, like how many meals are prepared, how much is donated. I do track all of those things, how many volunteers that we have, how many volunteer hours. So we track everything with QR codes. And we make sure, I want to get a better tracking system in terms of, I'm working with we call Airmark, and Airmark, they have a card for students to use for them to get their meals. I'm hoping that we can attach something to that if they come to the Jaguar N.E.S.T, that we can see how many times they've come to the Jaguar N.E.S.T compared to going to somewhere on campus and they have to pay. So we're working to figure out how we can integrate our systems with their systems, but that's right now we're tracking. I can tell you when it comes to the food, I know exactly how much food is donated, how much food has been prepared. For the students and the people that are using the N.E.S.T, they're scanning the QR code. Now at the church, there's no QR code because they're not students, and I don't want them to feel like if we put a camera up, we're like this is connected to anything. So we just know how much we put in the church N.E.S.T. I can't tell you how many people is actually using the one on church, but on campus, I can tell you how many times the QR code has been scanned. So I do recommend when you are sitting down creating your plan, you put a technology person on your team so you can think about exactly how you're going to track everything. And I never knew as a dietitian that I would be doing this type of work. Just a funny story. I was a clinical dietitian for years until COVID happened. And then all of things changed. And now I'm out in the community and fighting food insecurity and focusing on making sure everyone has access to food. And our university, we do have a food pantry on campus that the Baton Rouge Food Bank drops off food, but there's no fresh options. And they don't get consistent food as much as we do. So we do work with them. Like if the food bank drops off, they'll drop off, like I told you, a sack of potatoes. They might drop off zucchini. We take that food that's donated, like in that bulk, and we turn that into something so students can have a meal and not just a potato. It's a lot of coordination when you think about food and how you get it to the college students, and knowing there's also some things to think about from a dietitian standpoint. If you put allergens in the food, we make sure everything's labeled. So if something has nuts, we identify that for students. If it's soy, wheat, any of the big allergens, we make sure all that's identified. But everything that goes in the refrigerator will have a label with what's the food item, if there's an allergen, and the date it was prepared. I'm very particular about that because I don't want to get anyone sick. I make sure we're checking expiration dates. We're rotating any goods in and out, like first in, first out. So we're real big on those things. It's not just we're putting food and want people to eat, but we want to be safe when we're doing it. So food safety is really big. And all of my dietetic interns are serve qualified. So if I'm not in the room, they know what right looks like. So, and we make sure that when we bring in community partners that say, hey, we want to make sandwiches, we make sure, or like, hey, we want to donate sandwiches. I'm going to ask a lot of questions like, where will this be prepared? I'll make sure we train those people, and then you can prepare food to put in our refrigerators. Nothing can be put in the refrigerators without being approved by my office, because our goal is not to get anyone sick. I do want to feed people, but I do not want anyone to be sick. So food safety, when you're making that plan, that's really important to think about, making sure you have a food safety expert or person on your team so they can remind you about those things, making sure that everything is labeled, all those allergens are recognized, because you don't want to, you don't want to feed someone something and it can make them sick. Any other questions? You guys, I can talk about food all day, all day. You mentioned the support of your leadership. Is there a specific task force? So there wasn't a task force in place when I first got to Southern. I started 3 years ago. This has been a year old. So now we do have a task force in place, and we meet a few times a semester, but I talk to the chancellor consistently, like every step of the way. I'm keeping him in the loop. And when he think of things or think of partners we can partner with, he's bringing them to the table as well. So it wasn't a specific task force at all, but now we do have a hunger-free task force that we created probably about 6 months ago, so that we can start addressing things from all facets. So we make sure we have housing on the committee. We make sure we have our food group, the Airmark, that's our contractor, student services, admissions. So we're all about retention and recruitment and retention office, and bringing in the different deans of different colleges so they can tell us the challenges that students are facing in their departments. And that's how I was able to partner with the public policy department. They heard about what we were doing, and they let us know that they have from freshmen to PhD students, and they wanted to see how they could assist everybody in their building. So that's why they purchased their refrigerator and their shelving. So all we now have to do is start providing them with the food. So it wasn't a task force until about 6 months ago when we saw that we needed a task force. Great question, David. But I do encourage you all to email me, reach out, and ask any questions that you might have. We always post on the Jaguar N.E.S.T, like what our menus look like and what our students are doing. And then we encourage you to follow us on our internship page so you can actually see what our dietetic interns are doing as well. So if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I want to see the N.E.S.T across the United States everywhere. You don't have to be a Jaguar to have a N.E.S.T, but you can make sure that you're providing nourishment for your students. And I think that, you know, these small little things, like the small things that you can do to help a student get to graduation will really, really help the student in the long run. And I tell students, don't forget, I remember how I was as a college student, and so I try not to forget that. I keep that at the heart of what I'm doing so that I can ensure that when I'm talking to donors, no matter where they are, I can paint the picture for them and tell them how they will impact our students. And the goal is to increase our graduation rate. And I think all universities should be looking at that. So our students that are on SNAP benefits, our mayor, he had a whole list of restaurants that were offering free meals for them. And those free meals around our, the free meals. And then we opened up our student restaurant and we offered those students to eat for free if they had their SNAP benefit card as well. But there, we brought in the food bank to ensure that they can assist those students that were receiving SNAP benefits, and not just our undergraduate students. These were our grad students and our law students as well. So we have brought in as much support as we, you know, everything that we could think of, we were trying to do to support the SNAP benefit, the SNAP recipients. And even Airmark reached out, and they as well was giving free meals to students that didn't have a meal card, but they were on SNAP benefits. So yes, we had a lot of support for our students that were receiving SNAP benefits. And we try to make sure we were posting on social media to let students know of the restaurants that were offering those free meals for them. So I know some students, you know I check my emails, but I realize that students will check Instagram and X and things like that. So we try to make sure we post as much as we can in terms of what we're doing, who's doing it, and how we can impact how we can help them. And they literally, I jump on Instagram to check, and there's questions like, when is the N.E.S.T open? What I recommend we add this to the menu. So we listen to them. So I recommend that you listen to what the students are saying. Make sure you're doing surveys and asking questions. And I'm always about getting better. If they didn't like the baked ziti, maybe we don't do baked ziti. Maybe if they like the Caesar salad, we keep Caesar salads coming. So we want to make sure it's not just giving them food, but giving them food that's a healthy option and things that they enjoy eating. So I get excited when they say, hey, I enjoyed this meal. But I look forward to you all reaching out and asking questions, and you telling me about the N.E.S.T that you've created on your campus. And hey, if there's anything I can do, if I can even send a student to sit on your panel or your task force to help out, we're willing to do that, because we want to see food insecurity decrease tremendously across college campuses.
All right, I think we just have a couple minutes left. Are there any final questions in the chat? Anybody? One more question, it looks like came through.
Okay, so does your work intersect with the work of nutrition? It does. So we do work with the Center of Excellence. Dr. Marshall heads that up at Southern University, she and Ms. Kiana Kelly. So when we put their flyers in our N.E.S.T area, so they'll know when the Center of Excellence is working, like if they're offering something as well. And our Center of Excellence also they have a refrigerator in certain spaces on campus as well. So we do intersect and work hand in hand, Antonio. So do you know Dr. Marshall or Ms. Kelly? Because that's interesting that he asked about the Center of Excellence. But we do work with them. We work with them. We also work with our Ag Center and with our extension agents as well. I can't hear you, Antonio. But you can make sure you let Dr. Marshall know that I told everybody that we do partner with the Center of Excellence. And okay, well, that's great to know. We work hand in hand a lot, Antonio. But again, I'm going to say it again. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out on an email and follow us on Instagram so you can see what our students are doing. And I'm excited about what you all will do in the future.